Ever since I got my first airbrush, I've absolutely fallen in love with using airbrushes for miniature painting. They just open up a whole world of possibilities and giving you really nice clean primes, highlighting, varnish, everything. I mean, it just really opened the door for me and it really made me enjoy miniature painting more. After I got my first airbrush, I immediately started looking around at other airbrushes because the first one I got was a master airbrush, which is, cheap Chinese one or whatever. I wanted to start using one to apply colors to miniatures. I started digging around, and one that I found that I really wanted to get, but it was sold out, and this was years ago, was the Harder Steenbeck Infinity Kyiv Dark. Okay, so this was an Infinity airbrush that they made, a special edition. Proceeds going to Kyiv, and it was a dark airbrush with all this cool artwork. I'd been looking for one forever, and checking eBay, things like that. You literally can't buy this airbrush. But through my perseverance and amazing research skills, I finally found one, you guys, and it just came in today. So I'm super excited. We're gonna open up this airbrush, check it out, and give it a whirl. It's my dream come true, right? So let me just open up the box here and get it out. And oh yeah, there it is, baby. My Harder Steenbeck Infinity Kyiv Dark. Just some assembly may be required. Just a little bit. So, as you can see here, I bought the airbrush in all parts. I also have a bunch of leftover parts from other builds and 2-in-1 kits and whatnot. So, I'm going to dig through that and open up these brand new parts here. And we're going to build a brush that you literally can't buy. So I'm going to talk about how we're going to go through that process, and if you're curious on how to just completely rebuild a Harder Steenbeck Infinity pre-2024 model, I just want to clarify it's not the new Infinity 2024 model with the sick dragon scale trigger thing on it. So this is the older one, but we're going to put a 0.15 millimeter fine line needle set in there. So let's get after it. First thing we got to do obviously is open up all these packages. We're going to get those open, get some tools out, and start building. All right, so let's go through these packages real quick just so you would know what you would need to build an airbrush. All right, first package, body. It's obviously the main component of the airbrush. It's like the motherboard of a PC. Cut that right open. Let's get after it. So I'm just going to kind of briefly look in all the orifices here, make sure there's no leftover oils, machining, bits and whatnot, and it all looks spotless. This one here was made on September 23rd, 2024. So this was made not too long ago. And there you have it. So obviously they made some bodies to sell as parts, even though the airbrush itself sold out. The next part is the end piece. And I hadn't actually intended on buying this piece because I'm actually going to do a mod to this airbrush later in a different video. But when I ordered this, they sent me this. And, and all of that shuffle, they're like, just go ahead and keep the end piece and we'll send you the body. So there you go. I'm going to cut that open. And that's beautiful. The one thing that I really like about these Kyiv Infinities is that they're all aluminum. This thing is light, like super light. Let me get the scale out. 13 grams. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. So when you're airbrushing for a long time, fatigue and all that starts to take effect, and weight is going to be one of the biggest factors of that. The other big factor is trigger comfort, for me at least. So we're going to address that with this build because we're going to put in some 2024 parts on this build, making it a little bit better. Alright, so we got the body and the end piece. We're going to need the middle piece. Normally these Kyiv brushes have a matte chrome kind of like accessory motif going on with the colors and all that. But I wanted to make something a little bit different because who doesn't like black and gold, right? Oops. Sorry, this cardboard wants to slide everywhere. So it's going to be a special Enslow Kyiv edition. So we have the waist piece for the Infinity. Okay, then we're going to get to the trigger assembly setup. A few parts for that. So this one here we have the needle spring or tension adjuster for the needle spring. That's going to go right into the back of the middle piece here. Might as well just open that up. So one thing that's interesting about these Kyiv Infinities is that they did not expose the needle assembly, spring, trigger, whatever you want to call all of that stuff, right? Sometimes you have these cutouts where you can see all of that stuff and actually have access to these controls back here. You can adjust the trigger tension, you can adjust, or sorry, loosen the needle with a needle chucking nut. And they made these Kyiv airbrushes with all these gold inner components, but you can't really see them. So that's something we're going to address in my mod that we're going to do in a future video. Just FYI, that's why I got these gold pieces. They were more expensive than the regular nickel or chrome plated ones. So here we have the needle guide. I don't know what you call that. What do they label this as? Yeah, needle guide. Okay, so we got this needle guide, but we're also going to pop in some mods on this needle guide. If you guys watch Dread FX, he has a little mod to help take out some of the dead zone on the trigger. You know, dead zones where you pull back and nothing happens for a while. It sucks on video games, controllers, you know, whatever. So we're going to address that hopefully a little bit with his mod onto that. Okay, and then here's the first 2024 part, the needle chucking nut, which goes onto the needle guide to clamp the needle in. Okay, so this needle chucking nut is the newer one compared to an old one, which just kind of looked like a regular gnarled nut thing. This one has like a self-centering rear end here, so when you slide the needle in from the back, it reduces the chance that getting at a weird angle and then getting the tip stuck in the split and the needle guide, right? So that split is how the chuck works. Sometimes you get the needle tip in there and you're going to bend your needle. So this needle chucking nut really kind of helps with that. So I'm going to completely eliminate it. You do still have to be mindful, but should take care of it. Okay, and then the last thing for the trigger assembly is going to be obviously the trigger. And we got the new Ultra 2024 trigger. Full trigger assembly including spring. So I've tried out these Ultra triggers and I really like them. They're super comfortable. I'm kind of on the fence on whether or not I prefer them over that. the new Infinity 2024 trigger, which I call the dragon scale. I don't know why, but it just, is that a pineapple? Whatever. So that's all the, just FYI, you can pop these trigger pieces apart. They're just kind of held by tension. No biggie. There you go. Okay, so some of the last pieces we're going to need here are going to be seals. We're going to need a paint cup and then our air valve system. Okay, so we have a micro cup. Because we're going to be going with the 0.15 millimeter needle, I figured the micro cup is the best option there. Also, this airbrush, one of the biggest things about it is how light it is. So paint cups are actually pretty heavy, I learned. We're going to put the micro on there, and that's going to keep the weight down. So then last thing I have here is a seal kit. I think most of the seals should be within the airbrush already. It said that the seals were installed. I'm going to double check some of those though, because I found some funky things with some of these Harder Steenbeck airbrushes before. But I think we got everything. So we have the air valve body and then the innards here. So we're going to have to build that one. You can usually buy this as one component pre-built, but those were sold out. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to start with for this build is this air valve. And we're going to put, we'll unbox it, but we're going to check some of the other things in the body real quick. Gotta be real careful with these air valve assembly parts because they are super small, especially the spring. My stupid robes. Great dragging on the cardboard. All right. Spring seals. All that fun stuff. There we go. All unboxed. Oh, minus the paint cup. Let's get that. Okay, so with these Harder Steenbeck brushes, you don't need a lot of tools to build them, even when they're completely taken apart like this. So I basically just have this screwdriver. I have the middle ring tool. Oh, here it is. You know, that's to tighten this middle ring down to the body. That's pretty much it. Sometimes you might need soft jaws, but I don't think we're going to need those. All right, so here we go. Air spring assembly body. Air valve assembly body. We're going to put this first O-ring on it. It slips over this top threaded area. And you can tell it's the top because it narrows down to where it goes into the airbrush. Okay, so we get that black O-ring on there. That's going to make a seal for the air. And then we got to get the air piston into there. Or I guess the valve piston. So we're going to slide this teeny little black O-ring. There's a little step here. So we're going to pop that over the step. Just like that. Then we're ready to slide that into the valve body. So I'm just going to slide that down into there. You can see it poking out the top. Oh, all right. Let's see if we can pop it on the bottom of the piston. Okay, there we go. That's how you do it. I've never really watched anybody build one of these before. I've just kind of do what I do, figure it out. That's better. Okay, that spring's now centered inside there. Now when I tighten this down, we should stay centered. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, test it. Oh yeah, nice and smooth. We want it to be smooth, not gritty or anything. You know, that's when you push the trigger down. We want that action to be smooth. Okay, so I'm gonna put just a teensy little bit of lube right up here. We don't want to add too much, because if you add too much, that lube's gonna get down into the air chamber, which will eventually make its way up to the head and, you know, mix with your paint and all that fun stuff. We don't want that. Okay, so we put a little white seal that came with the kit over that brass piston, and we push it down, seat it inside of the air valve body, just like that. That's your completed air valve assembly. I'm gonna get a kitchen roll real quick. I want to get lube on everything. All right, so we're ready to put that into the body, but I do want to check the needle packing screw real quick. I have gotten two Harder Steenbeck airbrushes where they didn't have the right needle packing seal. So they stacked 3 like other seals to make a makeshift seal, and paint was getting back into the body of the airbrush. So we're gonna avoid it, see if we can triple check that. Okay, yeah, see, I don't know if I have an extra seal on me right now for that because I used it on the other one. But here's what I'm talking about. Oh, this PTF seal inside of the needle packing set is PTFE. That one might be one in there. Let's see if that one works. But you know, it's solvent resistant, so it's there to prevent paint getting into the back of the airbrush. Yes, I don't think that's the right size. Yeah, it needs to be larger than that. So yeah, it looks like they took 3 of these seals maybe and just stacked them. So it's something I don't have on hand, but we will be fixing that. I do have one on order. These seals are really hard to find, but I do have some on order, so I should get those in the future. So we'll put that back in real quick. This is the needle packing screw. It's a little set screw where these seals slide in. And basically what happens is when you tighten down this screw, it smashes those seals and they kind of bulge. That bulging is what seals around the needle. And you can adjust how tight that is by loosening it or tightening it. So if you put a needle in and it feels super tight, or you like pull it back and it doesn't go forward, it's probably because this is way too tight or there's something wrong with your needle packing screw. So we're going to put that back in. Sorry for that interruption. My camera overheated. So anyway, I was talking about that is expensive Iwata needle set tool. Here it is, and it actually fits on this thing. So yay, I actually get to use it. This was actually a gift, so that's why I have it. I would not spend the money on this thing. So just quickly, I guess I should show you. It's a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver with a rod going through the middle of it. That allows you to put the screw on there, keep it centered, keep it all together. You can see I was fiddling with it before. You can do it with a regular screwdriver. I've done it a lot with a regular screwdriver. So that might be something we need to go back and adjust once we get the needle and all that in there. But we'll set that aside for now. Okay? So we should be able to go ahead and put the air valve into the body. You just have to finger tighten that. Let me see, I do have a quick disconnect. Should have a nice Harder Steenbeck one. These are the best quick disconnects to get. They have a flat rubber washer in them instead of a donut shaped one. And these ones just give the best seal. And there you go. Coming together. All right, next thing's easy. We just got to put together the trigger spring assembly. A couple ways to do that, but I'm going to do it by assembling this piece by piece and kind of put it all together and then put it in the body if you want. And take this little middle piece tool here and put it in one of the holes, tighten it down. You don't want to over tighten it. This is aluminum. You know, it's not like titanium or anything, so. Okay, we gotta put the needle guide in there. We're gonna do the Dread FX fix for the needle tension and getting it to be a bit more responsive. And that's just simply the 2 PTFE seals that are normally on the nozzle here. I did have to enlarge the holes to get them to fit over the needle guide. I used my little drill tool for drilling pinholes and whatnot in the models. And just pop those 2 onto there. That should help. I don't know how that's going to interact with the 2024 trigger because I think this fix is more for the older trigger style. So we're going to test it out. We might just end up having to pop those off, but that's not a big deal. Okay, so I'm going to slide this in here and see what's going on. Okay. Interesting. I'm going to pop that back out real quick. Seems like getting some weird play there. Or interference. Yeah, that's pretty rough. I don't know if I like that. Like, holy smokes, guys! These surfaces on this gold needle guide are just rough. You can see the machining marks on them. Well, we'll have to see how that works out. First thing we're gonna do though is put a little bit of lube on it. That will help a little bit. Might have to hit this with some sandpaper, which is gonna remove the gold finish, which is kind of frustrating because I paid a little extra for that. Okay, that's a little better, but definitely rough. Feels gritty. I don't like that. Okay, you get the spring. You can put that in. Tension adjuster nut. I'm going to screw that down pretty far. And then we have the needle chucking nut. Okay, so that's how you assemble it outside of the body. And then you can just slide that in. Screw it in. Tighten it down. Okay, so that's pretty good assembled. Sometimes I like to add a little bit of lube onto the needle guide back here. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm going to pop the trigger in. Oh yeah, that feels pretty good. I think that might work with the new trigger. Crossing my fingers. All right, so from here you just basically put in your nozzle front end. Okay, tighten that down finger tight. Don't over tighten these. I don't know why, but some of them I get from the factory. Seems like they use the torque wrench to tighten down the front. And it pancakes the seals and you end up getting air coming through. So just be gentle. You don't need to over tighten things like that. Micro cup, look at that. Ooh, yeah, baby. I just need, we need to be able to see these gold components. They're so pretty. But when you put this on, what's going on here? These old ones not accepting it. Oh, might not fit that new nut. That's a problem. So that's something we will have to address as well in our mod. That's really pretty. I like this purple anodized thing, but we're gonna probably replace that with a different one that's matching the theme that I got going on here more. But okay, so it seems like this back piece is not gonna work with the new nut. Oh, it does. Oh, it's this that doesn't work with the new nut. Interesting. Well, this thing I wanted to put on this brush because the purple, ooh, yeah. And I put this matte chrome piece on there, and I really just like the theme on that one. So we're gonna figure that out. We'll probably have to trim a piece in there to get these end pieces to fit, but honestly, you guys, I really don't ever use these color control knobs. You can see I just take them off. It's extra weight. And I want these things to be as light as possible, right? So, yeah, same thing here. This brass tube here would need to be trimmed back to work with the new needle chucking nut. All right, well, let's just sideline that for now. We'll worry about that later. I might not even need it because the mod I've been talking about won't have an end piece. We're gonna do something completely different. Only one other airbrush company is doing it right now. So we're gonna do that instead. But here we are. Look at that, guys. My own Infinity Kyiv Dark. This was probably one of the last bodies I could find on the internet, at least. So I don't know if there's gonna be too many more of these brushes ever. Kind of fun. All right, we're gonna put the needle in. I'm gonna bring it into the booth. Do some test spraying real quick with it. See how it runs. Ooh, that's pretty tight. So I need to take this off, loosen that up a little bit, do all that fun stuff. And then we're gonna get into the booth, do some test sprays real quick, see how it operates. Okay, let's get this Infinity Kyiv Dark in the booth and do some testing. To be honest, I've actually been playing around with this brush quite a bit, trying to get it to spray well. It's very picky about paint. I polished the needle. I reamed out the nozzle a little bit. That seemed to help. Yeah, and I tried a bunch of different paints. I finally got it to spray with some golden high flow acrylics mixed with some water and 4021 Createx reducer. But I would honestly say the new Infinity 2024, even though it has a 0.25 millimeter needle, it gives you much finer lines and much more responsive control. So I definitely prefer that over this older one. And this older one even has the you know, the enhancement that Dread FX introduced with the little bushings in there. Okay, well, that's not a good sign. We're getting paint when we're pulling pushing the air down. Oh, you get bubbles in the cup. There we go. There we go. There we go. So that's acceptable. It's gonna be kind of hard to pick up on camera, but I'm getting pretty thin lines that seem very consistent. Like I said, I've been playing around with this thing quite a bit. I've got some really fine lines here that are consistent. But I've also have lines where there's a lot of sputtering, and you'll see basically it looks like just a line of dots instead of just a smooth line. So like I said, polishing the needle helped, reaming out the nozzle a little bit, make sure that was free of any kind of junk. All this stuff was new, so it probably had some kind of grease on it. So I made sure to clean it all really good. But yeah, after some trial and error, we got this thing working. Honestly, it feels good, and the thing that I like most about this airbrush is how light it is. And so yeah, I'm very happy. Obviously you have to be good on your thinning and making sure that you have the right paints for using this old 0.15 millimeter needle. But other than that, it's a very nice brush to use. I like the new trigger on it. All the kind of stripped down light agileness of it. But I do think the 2024 is a much better brush. So if you're in the market, I would go for the newer one. Tools carry stories. And what better story than creation itself? A tool built to your own standards will always outclass one pulled off of a shelf. If you're chasing mastery, innovation, and a little magic along the way, subscribe and join the circle. There's plenty more airbrush hijinks and deeply overthought tool tests on the horizon. Whether you know me as Zinslow Greymane, the Wily Wizard, or Night Owl Forge, you can always count on me to find solutions to otherwise impossible problems. Until next time, keep building, keep modding, and stay inspired.